Hi, I'm Sumrit. I work with askIITians.com as a biology expert. Today we are going to discuss how to solve questions related to the chapter Breathing and Exchange of Gases. So let's go on to the first question. So the first question says, alkalosis is increased blood pH resulting in a leftward shift of the oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve. Which of the following might cause alkalosis? So alkalosis is basically increased expulsion of carbon dioxide into air. Basically we are expiring more CO2 than required. So as we know that carbon dioxide combines with water to form H2CO3, which is carbonic acid, which further splits into H plus and HCO3 minus ions. So now if there is increased expulsion of carbon dioxide into air, there will be decreased CO2 in blood. So which implies there will be shift in the backward direction of above reaction. Will shift in the backward direction, which implies there will be decreased H plus ions. Hence there will be increased blood pH. The pH will increase. So basically alkalosis is caused by more expiration of CO2 into air, and this condition is called as hyperventilation. So the correct option is hyperventilation. Rest of the options are incorrect. Let's go on to the next question. So the next question says, which of the following would most likely occur in the presence of a carbonic anhydrase inhibitor? So as we know that carbonic anhydrase catalyzes this reaction. So it basically is helping the formation of bicarbonate ions, and these bicarbonate ions then go to the plasma, and this then goes into the plasma, and this goes to the, this is in the blood, and this then goes to the lungs. So at the lungs level, the carbon dioxide pressure in the blood is more, so that more carbon dioxide can be expired outside the lungs and we can take in oxygen. So basically if we have a carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, so this reaction will not occur. So due to which what will happen is the HCO3 minus ions will not be produced. Hence there will be decreased carbon dioxide present at the level of blood present near the lungs. So due to which the rate of gas exchange at lungs will decrease, because majority of the blood at that point will not be having carbon dioxide. So there will be less carbon dioxide at the level of lungs in the blood. So hence there will be less chances of carbon dioxide going out, and since there is no bicarbonate ions, so basically the rate of gas exchange at the lungs will decrease. So the correct option is C. The rate of gas exchange in the lungs would decrease. Rest of the options do not hold true. Let's go to the next question. So the next question says, which of the following will most likely occur during heavy exercise? So in this case, let's go to the options first. So it says blood pH will decrease in the active tissues. Less oxygen will be delivered to the tissues due to increased cardiac contractions, resulting in increased blood velocity. Then the next option says capillaries surrounding contracting skeletal muscle will constrict to allow increased freedom of movement. And the last says the respiratory system will deliver less nitrogen to the blood. So let's see what happens during heavy exercise. So in heavy exercise, what happens is basically our muscles start respiring anaerobically. This is mainly occurring during heavy exercise because there is insufficient supply of oxygen to the muscles. So due to which the pathway it undertakes is production of lactic acid. So this lactic acid then will split into lactate ions and H plus ions. So there will be increased concentration of H plus ions in the tissues. So this H plus ions will go into the blood, and hence it will lead to decrease in blood pH. So this option A is correct option, which says blood pH will decrease in the active tissues. So the option B will not be correct because less oxygen will be delivered to the tissues due to increased cardiac contractions resulting in increased blood velocity, which is incorrect because due to increased cardiac contractions, the system compensates for delivering more oxygen, not less oxygen. So this is incorrect. And also there will be no constriction of blood, the capillaries surrounding skeletal muscles. In fact, there will be more dilation so that they can provide more blood flow to the skeletal muscles. So this option is also incorrect. Then nitrogen has not much role to play in this process. So the option D is also incorrect. So the correct option is A. Blood pH will decrease in the active tissues. Let's go on to the next question, which says an athlete can engage in blood doping by having blood drawn several weeks before an event, removing the blood cells and having them re-injected into a body a few days before an athletic activity. So blood doping is most likely an advantage to athletes because, so before going into the options, let me just give you a brief idea about blood doping. So blood doping, as the question says, that blood doping is removal of blood, and from it then blood cells are taken and they are re-injected. So what does this procedure do is it increases the blood cells in the system, due to which there will be increased rate of gas exchange, which is required by the athletes because during running they are basically doing a very heavy exercise. So there will be increased rate of gas exchange, hence there will be increased oxygen delivery and increased carbon dioxide removal. So this is basically beneficial to the athletes. So let's go to the options now. So it says that the first option says the increased concentration of immune cells in the blood after re-injection can decrease the chances of becoming ill just before the competition. So this option is incorrect because they are not doing it for the purpose of reducing the chances of illness. They are mainly doing it for the purpose of winning the game, so that there will be more gaseous exchange and hence they will be able to perform in the race much better. So the option A is ruled out. Next it says the increased red blood cell count in the blood after re-injection can facilitate greater exchange with the tissues. So which seems the correct option because, as I discussed before, that blood doping will lead to increase in the red blood cells in the blood. So which will help in greater gaseous exchange with the tissues. So this option is the correct option. Rest of the options are also incorrect. Let's look at them. So the next option says the increased blood volume after re-injection can ensure that the athlete maintains adequate hydration during the event. So this option is incorrect because this is not done to maintain adequate hydration. It is more for greater gas exchange. And the last says the decreased red blood cell count of the blood in the weeks before the competition can facilitate training by decreasing the viscosity of the blood. So this option is also incorrect because blood doping is mainly leading to increased blood cell count, not decrease, and it facilitates training by increasing greater gaseous exchange. So this option is also incorrect. So the correct is B. Let's go on to the next question. So the next question says that carbon dioxide partial pressure. So we have couple of options. So let's see, the first option says it increases in the blood as it travels from the systemic venules to the inferior vena cava. Then the option B says it increases in the blood as it travels from the pulmonary arteries to the pulmonary veins. And the next option it says is greater in the blood in the systemic capillary beds than in the alveoli of the lungs. And the last says is greater in the blood in the systemic capillary beds than in the systemic tissues. So let's go option by option. So the first option, it says that it increases in the blood as it travels from systemic venules to the inferior vena cava. So this is incorrect, because from the systemic venules to the inferior vena cava, the blood is mainly deoxygenated only. So basically it is having carbon dioxide only. So basically as such there should be no change. In fact the carbon dioxide partial pressure should remain same, because it is just collecting the from the systemic venules and giving it to the inferior vena cava. So this option is incorrect. The next one, it says it increases in the blood as it travels from the pulmonary arteries to the pulmonary veins. So this is also incorrect, because pulmonary veins are carrying mainly oxygenated blood, which means the carbon dioxide partial pressure should decrease rather than increase. So this option is also incorrect. Next it says is greater in the blood in the systemic capillary beds than in the alveoli of the lungs. So this option is correct, because in the systemic capillary beds there will be increased CO2 coming from tissues activity. So basically at the level of lungs, at the alveoli, there is decreased carbon dioxide at the level of alveoli, and there is increased carbon dioxide in the systemic tissue, in the systemic capillary beds. So this is bringing more carbon dioxide into the blood, and due to this difference in partial pressure, this carbon dioxide from the blood can diffuse into the alveoli and then it goes into the air outside. So hence we can say that this option is correct. It is greater in the blood in the systemic capillary beds than in the alveoli of the lungs. And the option D, it says, is greater in the blood in the systemic capillary beds than in the systemic tissues. So this option is also incorrect, because the carbon dioxide level is actually not changing much from in the systemic tissues and systemic capillary beds. So the correct option is C. Okay, so let's go to the next question. So the next question says, at high altitude, water vapor pressure in the lungs remains the same and carbon dioxide pressure falls slightly. Oxygen pressure falls. The body of a person remaining at high altitudes for days, weeks and even years will acclimatize. All of the following changes assist the body in coping with the low oxygen except. So let's go to the options first. So first it says that there are increased blood cells. Then it says there is decreased vascularity of the tissues. Then it C says increased pulmonary ventilation, and D it says increased diffusing capacity of the lungs. So before going on to the correct answer, let me give you a brief idea. So at high altitude, what is happening is there is decreased supply of oxygen to the tissues. So to compensate for this, so the person body produces more RBCs, and there is increased vascularity of the tissues, and there is increased ventilation, like basically increased gaseous exchange is occurring, and there is increase in diffusing capacity of the lungs. So basically all these things are occurring. So let's see which does not match. So option B does not match with it because it says decreased vascularity of the tissues, which means decreased vascularity means decrease passing of the blood vessels through the tissues. Like the tissues will have less blood vessels as compared to the original situation, which is incorrect. Basically even the blood vessels will start going to the tissues more. So the option B does not occur. So this should be the correct option in this case. Rest of the options are going to occur, so they are incorrect. So the correct answer is B, decreased vascularity of the tissues. So let's go to the next question. So the next question says, in an asthma attack, a patient suffers from difficulty in breathing due to constricted air passages. The major causative agent is a mixture of leukotrienes called slow reacting substance of anaphylaxis. During an asthma attack, slow reacting substance of anaphylaxis most likely causes. So asthma is a condition where there is a constriction of bronchioles. So this is mainly occurring because of increased contraction of smooth muscles of bronchioles. So as per this explanation, the option A holds true, which says smooth muscle spasms of the bronchioles. So this option is correct. Rest of the options are not valid. So let's go to the next question. So the next question says that sustained heavy exercise results in all of the following changes to blood chemistry except. So before going into the options, let me give you a brief idea about what happens during heavy exercise. So as I said before, during heavy exercise, first of all, the muscle starts sometimes respiring anaerobically. So due to which there is increase in H plus ions, which means there is decrease in pH. Also, since the metabolism of the body increases, so there is increase in temperature. So there is increase in temperature. Also, there is more CO2 generated. There is more CO2 generated during respiration. So if more CO2 is generated, which means there will be increased carboxyhemoglobin form at the tissue level. So all of the options are correct except this, decreased carboxyhemoglobin. So there will be lowered pH will be there. So this is an incorrect option. There will be lower pH. There will be raised CO2 tension. So this is also an incorrect option. So this occurs, so that's it is incorrect. There will be increase in temperature. So the only option which will not occur is the decreased carboxyhemoglobin. In fact, the carboxyhemoglobin content will increase due to increase in CO2 generated. So the correct answer is D, decreased carboxyhemoglobin. So let's go to the next question. So the next question says, which is correct about gas exchange in humans? So the first, it says the diaphragm rises and air is pulled into the lungs. So the diaphragm rises mainly during expiration process, not during inspiration. So this is an incorrect statement, that air is not pulled into the lungs. In fact, air is withdrawn from the lungs. So this option is incorrect. Next is, as humans inhales, the pressure in the chest cavity decreases and air is drawn into the lungs. So what is happening during inspiration is that diaphragm moves towards the abdomen region. So this increases the volume in the lungs or increases the volume in the chest cavity. So due to which there is a difference in atmospheric pressure and the pressure inside the chest cavity. So there is more atmospheric pressure as compared to the pressure in the chest. So due to which the air goes into the lungs. So this option is correct. So the option B should be the correct answer. Let's see why the option C is not correct. The breathing rate is controlled by the hypothalamus in the brain, which is wrong. It is controlled by medulla oblongata. So this is an incorrect option. And the last, it says that hemoglobin carries carbon dioxide and oxygen in fairly equal amounts. So this is incorrect. It does not carry them in equal amounts. Rather, different amounts of carbon dioxide and oxygen are carried by hemoglobin. So the correct option is B. Let's go to the next question. So the next question says that breathing in humans is regulated by number of red blood cells, amount of hemoglobin in the blood, inherent genetic control, CO2 levels and pH sensors. So breathing in humans is regulated by generally this medulla oblongata. And medulla oblongata basically responds to changes in the H+ ion concentration and CO2 levels. So the correct option is CO2 levels and the pH sensors. D. Rest of the options are incorrect. Okay, so let's go to the next question, which says what is vital capacity of our lungs? So before going on to the options, let me give you a brief definition of vital capacity. So vital capacity is basically the maximum amount of air inspired after forceful expiration. Basically, how much maximum amount of air that can be accommodated in the lungs after forceful expiration. So this vital capacity is the sum of tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume and expiratory reserve volume. Whereas the total lung capacity is the total amount of air that can be accommodated in the lungs after forceful inspiration. So this is a combination of vital capacity plus residual volume. It gives us total lung capacity. So basically it means that vital capacity should be equal to total lung capacity minus residual volume. So the correct option from here is B, total lung capacity minus residual volume. So let's go to the next question. So next question says that left shift of oxyhemoglobin curve is noticed under. So left shift of oxyhemoglobin curve basically suggests that there is increased binding of hemoglobin to oxygen. So this is actually the curve. So left shift will be this, the dotted line will be the left shift, which basically means at one particular partial pressure of oxygen, at this particular pressure of oxygen, there will be more oxygen bound at that particular pressure. This will be the left shift. So let's see what factors can lead to the right shift, which is this. The second line, which I am just crossing, this is the right shift. So the right shift is basically due to increase in H+ concentration and increase in temperature. So increased H+ concentration means there is decreased pH and high temperature. So decreased pH and high temperature will lead to the right shift, rightward shift. So the opposite of this, which means high pH and low temperature, will lead to the left shift. So from this it is basically option B which is correct, is low temperature and high pH. Let's move on to the next question. So the next question says pick the correct statement. So let's go to each statement. So the first, it says the contraction of internal intercostal muscles lifts up the ribs and sternum. So this option is not correct because it is the external intercostal muscles that lift the ribs up, not the internal. So this is an incorrect option. Next one, it says the RBCs transport oxygen only, which is incorrect because they also carry some percentage of carbon dioxide also. So this is also an incorrect statement, hence not the correct option. The next option is the thoracic cavity is anatomically an airtight chamber. So this option is correct. Basically the chest cavity or thoracic cavity is an airtight chamber, so as to prevent as much as possible less leakage, so as to prevent the leakage of air. And the last one, it says the healthy man can inspire approximately 500 ml of air per minute. So this can be confusing. So actually it is 500 ml of air per breath. You can say per breathing rate. So actually speaking, it is 500 into 12, 6000 ml per minute, because the breathing rate is around 12 to 16 breaths per minute. 12 to 16 breaths per minute, that's the breathing rate. So it is basically 6000 to 8000 ml per minute, not 500 ml of air per minute. So this option is also incorrect. So the correct option is the thoracic cavity is anatomically an airtight chamber. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So the next question says the partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolar air is. So this is a very straightforward question. So it is more like remembering the partial pressure of oxygen in different compartments, like in the alveolar air, in the atmospheric air, at the tissue level. So the answer to this is C, which is 104 millimeter of mercury. This is the correct option. Rest of them are incorrect. Let's move on to the next question. So the next question says which two of the following changes usually tend to occur in the plain dwellers when they move to high altitudes like 3500 or more. So the first, it says so there are different changes given in the form of options 1 to 4, and then we have to see which of the options are correct. So the first one, it says increase in red blood size. Second one, it says increase in red blood cell production. Third, it says increase breathing rate. And the fourth, it says increase in thrombocyte count. So as also stated previously, that when a person moves to high altitude, since there is less delivery of oxygen to the tissues, so to compensate for that, there is increased RBC production, so that more oxygen, more hemoglobin is available for binding to oxygen. More hemoglobin is available. And another thing that occurs is there is increased breathing rate. So out of this, the correct options look like it is the second and the third should be the correct option. So to this, the option A matches. Rest of the options are not correct, like increase, because there is no, the increase in RBC cell size has nothing much to do with increased delivery of oxygen. So this is incorrect. And increase in thrombocyte count has no role with relation to increased delivery of oxygen or increased gaseous exchange to tissues, because thrombocytes are involved in blood clotting. So the correct option is A, which is 2 and 3. Let's go to the next question. So next question says, when the blood contains a high percentage of CO2 and a very low percentage of oxygen, the breathing stops and the person becomes unconscious. This condition is known as. So let's go to each option one by one. So the first one, it says bronchitis. So bronchitis is mainly inflammation of bronchi. So there is swelling of the bronchi. So basically so it should not be the correct option, because it says that the breathing stops and the person becomes unconscious. This is not the case in bronchitis. It is mainly inflammation of bronchi. Next one is asphyxia. So asphyxia is basically the condition where is decreased oxygen delivery, or there is a very low percentage of oxygen in the blood, and due to which there is abnormal breathing. So this should be the correct option. Asphyxia should be the correct option, which is B. Emphysema is a condition where the alveoli get damaged. So this option is also incorrect. And eupnea is a condition which is, you can say quiet breathing. It's a case of quiet breathing. So this is also incorrect. So the correct option is asphyxia. Let's move on to the next question. So the next question says, which of the following is the correct statement for respiration in humans? So the first says cigarette smoking may lead to inflammation of bronchi. And second, it says neural signals from pneumotoxic center in pons region of brain can increase the duration of inspiration. The third, it says workers in grinding and stone breaking industries may suffer from lung fibrosis. And the D, it says both A and C. So let's go to each option. So the first, it says cigarette smoking may lead to inflammation of bronchi, which is true. Hence it should be the correct statement. So let's go to the next stage, which says neural signals from pneumotoxic center in pons region of brain, they can increase the duration of inspiration, which is not true, because they decrease the inspiration rate. They decrease the inspiration duration. So this option is not correct. And the C option also looks correct, because the workers who are working in like different industries, they can suffer from diseases such as fibrosis, where the lung becomes fibrous in nature. So C also statement looks correct. So both A and C seem to be the correct options. So the D option should be the correct in this case. Rest of the options are incorrect. Let's go to the next question, which says during the transportation of gases, to maintain the ionic balance, chloride ions shift from. So in this case, what is happening over here is, during the gaseous exchange, especially when the carbon dioxide is being carried out. So the carbon dioxide from tissues, it moves into the blood and it goes into the RBCs. Majority of the carbon dioxide goes into the RBCs and it gets converted into bicarbonate ions. So these bicarbonate ions, basically, if this is your RBCs, the bicarbonate ions, they diffuse from RBCs into the plasma, which is outside the RBCs. And to compensate for this negative charge to the plasma, chloride ions move from plasma to the RBCs, and which is called as chloride shift. So the option is that the chloride ions are moving from plasma to the RBCs. So the correct option is B, which is from plasma to RBCs. Rest of the options are incorrect. Let's move on to the next question, which says the respiratory center in brain is stimulated by. So as I previously discussed, that the respiratory center senses the changes in carbon dioxide concentration, carbon dioxide levels, and this mainly occurs in response to carbon dioxide levels in arterial blood. In venous blood, we know that carbon dioxide in venous blood has to be high, because venous blood is basically, the purpose is to take this carbon dioxide to the lungs where it can be released into the air. So this is incorrect option. And the respiratory center in brain is not much sensitive. It is not much sensitive to oxygen levels. Basically, oxygen has not much role in regulation of respiration by respiratory center in brain. So B and C are also incorrect. So the correct option is D, which is carbon dioxide concentration in arterial blood. Let's go on to the next question, question number 20th. So this is also a very straightforward question, which says dead space air in man is. So the dead space air is the air which does not take part in gaseous exchange. So it does not take part in gaseous exchange, and its volume is 150 ml. So out of the air that we take in, 150 ml of it does not take part in gaseous exchange. So the option is B. Correct option is B. Let's go to the next question, which says the Bohr effect on the oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve is produced directly by changes in. So we have four options given: temperature, pH, carbon dioxide levels, and oxygen concentration. So let me explain you what is Bohr's effect. So Bohr's effect is the change in the oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve. Basically, this curve shifts in response to changes in carbon dioxide and pH. So if there is increase in carbon dioxide concentration or decrease pH, this leads to shifting of the curve towards right. Like this, if this is the curve, like under normal conditions, so but if the carbon dioxide concentration of the pH or the increases or the pH decreases, then this curve shifts to the right. So basically if it can be a catch in the question, so based on this we'll say both the carbon dioxide concentration and decreased pH should lead to effect on the oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve. But here's the catch. So let me explain you why. So as I said that it is mainly the carbon dioxide that is responsible for changing the pH. So what happens is the carbon dioxide, when it is produced, it combines with water to give bicarbonate ion, which basically leads bicarbonic acid, which leads to the production of bicarbonate ion and H plus ions. So the concentration of H plus increases. So when this concentration of H plus increases, this H plus then leads to the release of oxygen from hemoglobin. So basically it is mainly the pH change that leads to Bohr's effect. So in the question we can say, just based on our understanding, we will first say that both CO2 and pH change are responsible, but direct is pH, because even if the CO2 levels are changing, it is eventually affecting the concentration of hydrogen ions. So it is mainly the pH changes that will directly show Bohr effect. Carbon dioxide will also show Bohr effect, but through pH only. So it's the answer will be pH, which is option B should be the correct answer. So option B will be the correct answer. Remaining options are incorrect. Let's move on to the next question. So next question says, in humans, the largest amount of the carbon dioxide produced by body cells is carried to the lungs as. So before going on to the options, let me tell you what happens to the carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide in blood, it is basically can be in three forms. It can be dissolved in plasma, it can be carried in the form of bicarbonate ions, or it can be carried bound to hemoglobin. But majority it is carried by bicarbonate ions, approximately 70% in plasma. So this is the maximum amount of carbon dioxide that is carried to the lungs in the form of bicarbonate ion. So the option is bicarbonate ion dissolved in the plasma. So this is the correct option. Rest of the options are incorrect. Why? Because the first is CO2 attached to hemoglobin in the RBCs, which is true, but it is only 23%. Attached to hemoglobin circulating in the plasma, which is almost same you can say, but it is attached to hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is not as a circulating in the plasma, it is in the RBCs. So this is option is incorrect. And the last is also not correct because bicarbonate ion is not attached to hemoglobin. This is an incorrect option. Let's go to the next question. So next question says, in which case specific gases, chemicals or suspended particulate matter in air are not responsible for this disease. So as I discussed previously a bit about it, that these specific gases, chemicals, suspended particulate matter in air, so these are mainly produced in work industries like stone breaking, and these can lead to diseases like silicosis, asbestosis, as well as fibrosis. So the option A, B and C are incorrect. So they are not responsible. So basically the specific gases, chemicals or suspended particulate are responsible for diseases. But it is the pneumonia for which they are not responsible, because pneumonia is due to infection by bacterium Streptococcus pneumoniae. So this option is a correct option, D. Let's go to the next question. The next question says, Hamburger's phenomena is also called. So this is a very straightforward question. So as I previously explained about chloride shift, when from the plasma, chloride ions move from plasma to RBCs to maintain the electrical neutrality in the plasma, because from RBCs bicarbonate ion goes to the plasma. This phenomena is also called as Hamburger's phenomena or Hamburger shift. So the correct option is C, which is chloride shift. Rest of the options are incorrect. Let's go to the next question. So the next question says that spasmodic contractions that partially close the bronchi are involved in. So as I discussed before, that in a condition called asthma, there is contraction of the smooth muscles. Smooth muscles of bronchi. So the correct option here is B, which is asthma. Rest of the options are not correct. Bronchitis is mainly inflammation of bronchi. Emphysema is there is a damage in alveolar wall. And pneumonia is an infection by bacterium, which also leads to swelling and inflammation. So the correct option is B, which is asthma. Let's go to the next question, question 26, which says which one of the following statement is not correct regarding trachea. So let's go to each option one by one. So first it says esophagus usually lies posterior to trachea, which is true because trachea is lying in front of the esophagus. Which is the food pipe. So this is not a, this option is correct, so hence it is not the correct option. Next it says it splits into the right and left bronchi to supply air to the lungs, which is also correct, hence it is not the correct option in this case. The next one, it says opening to the trachea is covered by epiglottis. So here it is a catch, we can get confused. So it is opening of pharynx into larynx, which is governed by epiglottis, because pharynx is a part of both respiratory as well as digestive system. So pharynx has an opening called epiglottis. It has a muscular structure called epiglottis which governs the opening of pharynx into larynx. So when the food is getting swallowed, this epiglottis covers this opening. It closes this opening so that the food does not go into the larynx and hence into the trachea. So it is basically opening to the larynx which is covered by epiglottis. So this option is not correct, hence it should be the correct option. And the last, it says that tracheal rings are C-shaped, which are cartilage rings, which is true, they are C-shaped, hence it is an incorrect option. So the correct is C. Let's go to the next question. So the next question says which one of the following is a possibility for most of us in regard to breathing by making a conscious effort. So let's go to each option one by one. The first, it says one can consciously breathe in and breathe out by moving the diaphragm alone without moving the ribs at all. So this option seems correct because when we breathe consciously, then we are mainly moving the diaphragm alone. Ribs do not have much role in that. So this option seems correct. So option B, it says the lungs can be made fully empty by forcefully breathing out all air from them, which is incorrect because there is some residual volume of air which always remains, residual volume, even after forceful expiration. So this is incorrect. Next it says one can breathe out air totally without oxygen, which is also incorrect. And the last one, it says one can breathe out air through eustachian tubes by closing both the nose and the mouth, which is also incorrect. So the correct option is A, which is one can consciously breathe in and breathe out by moving the diaphragm alone without moving the ribs at all. Let's go to the next question. So next question gives a picture. So it says basically from this picture, they have highlighted different parts of this picture. So we have to pick up which part is correctly matched. So let's see the picture first. So in this picture, it is showing an alveoli and it is surrounded by a capillary blood vessel. So this structure is alveoli cavity. And the C part is basically your capillary wall, you can say. And this is your RBCs. B is RBCs. And D is the basement membrane. D is the basement membrane. So let's see which ones are correct. So A, as I said, is alveolar cavity. So in this one, if we see, the C option looks correct. A is alveolar cavity. So this itself is sufficient to disregard others. So you can say that yes, C is the capillary. C can also be a tricky thing. It says arterial capillary. So yes, it could be, C can be the capillary over here. C C can be the capillary over here, but if you see that in this case it is not passing oxygen to tissues, it is taking oxygen from alveoli, it is not passing oxygen to tissues, it is taking oxygen. So, and first of all, when the capillary is coming over here, it is deoxygenated, it is not, so it should be the venous capillary, not the arterial capillaries. So this option also is incorrect. And then B, it says red blood cell, which is right. B is the red blood cell, but we have to see the function it is carrying. It's saying transport of CO2 mainly, which is wrong. It is also, there is an exchange of oxygen involved, so this is incorrect. So the B is also incorrect. The C says alveolar cavity, which is main site of gaseous exchange, which is correct. So the C option looks correct. And the D one, it says capillary wall, which is incorrect. It is actually the basement membrane. Though the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide is taking place, but it is the basement membrane. So this is also incorrect. So the correct option is C, which is alveolar cavity, main site of gaseous exchange. This is the correct option. Let's go to the next question. So next question says, which one of the following statements is incorrect? So let's go to each statement one by one. So the first statement says tuberculosis is caused by a rod-shaped bacterium, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is true. It is caused by this bacterium called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So this is a true option. So it is incorrect. It is true, hence it is incorrect. It is not a correct option in answer in this case. Next one is say tuberculosis is highly infectious and can be spread by airborne droplets, which is also correct. Hence this option is not correct because tuberculosis is a communicable disease. And the third option is tuberculosis can't be treated by antibiotics, this option is not correct, hence it is the correct option because there are antibiotics which can treat tuberculosis. So tuberculosis can be treated by antibiotics. So the option C is the correct in this case. And the last it says in pulmonary tuberculosis the elasticity of lungs is reduced, which is true. The elasticity of lungs is reduced in this case. So this is also not correct option. So the correct answer is C, that tuberculosis can't be treated by antibiotics in a sense, but it can be treated by antibiotics. And the last one is, let's go to the last question, which says biochemical nature and the role of lung surfactant are. So before going on to the options, let me give you a brief explanation of lung surfactant. So lung surfactant is a lipid actually. It's a lipid present in the alveoli wall which basically decreases the surface tension during contraction basically. So due to which it prevents the collapse of alveoli into lungs during respiration. So based on this, the correct option is C, the lipid, and it prevents alveoli from collapsing during respiration because it decreases the surface tension. Rest of the options are incorrect. Let's see why. Option A says carbohydrate, which is not correct. It is a lipid. B says protein, which is also not correct. The D option, though it says lipid, but it gives a different function. It says prevents diaphragm from returning to normal position during exhalation, which is also incorrect. So the correct option is C. So this brings us to the end of this session. So I hope this session was helpful to you. Stay tuned for my next session. Goodbye. All the best.